On the way back from Carlsbad, I found a cotton dress with pockets at Walmart, so I picked that up to replace the one that I tore a hole in. And it's now the morning of day 6, and I'm packing lunch and making breakfast to get us ready to hopefully leave by 8 o'clock, and we did manage to leave by 7:55. Today's picnic lunch will consist of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, sliced carrots, hummus, and apples, oranges, cherries, grapes, whatever fruit anybody wants. And I think we also ended up grabbing a few chips from one of the other bags also to eat with the hummus. In order to have variety, I prepared some different items at home a week or two before we left. One of those things we're eating this morning, it's egg gravy. And what I did was I just made a double batch when we were at home. And I took one of them and I divided them between 2 different silicone bread loaf pans. And then I froze them in that shape. And then when it was frozen all the way, I could take the silicone off, and then I vacuum sealed the cube of egg gravy. And I've done the same thing with a potato soup we're going to have later in the week also. But I left that out the day before and let it thaw so I could warm it up this morning and bake some biscuits and make some smoothie for breakfast. So you've seen the blueberry muffins that I froze, the egg gravy. I'll show you the potato soup later. It just looks like soup frozen. And I also would whip up, with a fork, a dozen eggs, and I froze those, a dozen eggs at a time, in the silicone shapes as well, and vacuum sealed them. And that's what I'm restocking my travel freezer and cooler with. I had them in the house Airbnb just to clean this freezer out and so I could wipe it down and stuff. But we're repacking to leave now, and so I am choosing to use the smaller side for my frozen stuff and the bigger side for my refrigerated. On the way out, I had it reversed because I had more frozen stuff, but because we've eaten some of it now, I've switched them around. But I'm getting that packed up along with everyone else, and they're helping get their things put together and all the little tidy up stuff we have to do at the Airbnb, starting a load of towels and taking the trash out. And then we hit the road. Today is going to be a long driving day. We are going from Carlsbad, New Mexico, which is like the southeastern side of New Mexico, straight up and then to the west over into Arizona, to Holbrook, Arizona. We'll be staying at another Airbnb. We went through Roswell. We saw some funny alien signs everywhere and little statues of aliens. We saw trains in the distance as we were driving. We also saw a very pretty dam and the lake behind the dam. And then we could tell that they had hydropower going across the southern portion of the U.S. We've seen the solar power, wind power, the gas fields for everything gas powered, and now we've seen hydropower. One thing we learned about New Mexico while we were on the highway was that they don't believe in rest stops here. Luckily, we didn't find ourselves in need of one because we would just use restaurants and bathrooms. But when you were out on the long stretches of highway, every now and then, what you would see for a rest stop was a picnic table with a shed roof over it. That was it. Like no buildings, no bathrooms, just a picnic table and a shed roof. I think somewhere in the state we did pass one place that was a building, so they must have had a bathroom in there. But otherwise, that was it. We went through Albuquerque, and then we ate lunch on the western side of Albuquerque. And again, there was no rest stop, so we just pulled over at a travel center, and there was no picnic tables, nothing there. So we found rocks to sit on. We had a nice view, so we just enjoyed our picnic lunch there. There isn't much about New Mexico that I'm familiar with, so while we were driving, I looked up some information to compare it with Virginia. Because kind of like Texas, as you drive through New Mexico, it's just vast, vast miles of nothingness. Like there was one sign we saw that said 7,000 acres. So I don't know if they meant that piece of land that we were looking at was 7,000 acres or if it was for sale. But if you compare the size of Virginia to the size of New Mexico is about 3 times larger than Virginia is. But Virginia has 4 times the number of people in it that New Mexico does. So that kind of explains the vast openness. Still kind of a wild frontier out here, I guess. But at least we've settled it enough to have highways and stores and hotels, and we can still travel easily across our country. In addition to the landscape, something else that looks different here and is very beautiful is how close the clouds are. Where we live in Virginia, we are about 600 feet or less. I think we're under 600 feet above sea level. In Carlsbad, it was somewhere around 3,000 feet above sea level. As we went through Albuquerque into Holbrook, Arizona, it's around 5,000 feet above sea level. And I know that when we get into Flagstaff and Grand Canyon, we're closer to 7,000 feet above sea level. And the clouds are just so much closer here. When you're riding by down the highway, it seems like they're not that far up. Like you could just, take a little hot air balloon ride and be right there in the clouds. Maybe because there wasn't anywhere interesting to stop and look and visit today. Even though we did take our stretching breaks every 90 minutes to 2 hours and gas fill-ups, we still managed to get to our next Airbnb at least an hour earlier, maybe an hour and a half earlier than I expected. There was also the time change, so maybe I didn't calculate that in very well. But we got here just after 3 o'clock in Arizona, which, currently this time of year is on Pacific time because they don't do the time change. So we got here at 3 o'clock on Wednesday, which would have been 6 o'clock back at home. Still struggled a little bit with being really, really tired. I really wanted to go to sleep around 7 o'clock in the evening, but made myself stay up till 9. We had dinner. Our dinner tonight, since we had picnic lunch, we went ahead and made pizza bagels for dinner with some carrot sticks, and then we played some more rook. So it's like we're covering rook at a different table each place we go to. That was it for day 6. Our only expenses today were 2 little gas fill-ups and the Airbnb.